Jason Morgan knew something was terribly wrong the second he stepped into the silent room and felt the absence of Britt Westbourne like a physical blow. The air was cold and empty. Her things were gone. No note. No warning. No trace. The last image burned into his mind was Carly Corinthos standing across from Britt hours earlier. Anger flashing. A sharp sound cutting the air as Carly's hand struck Britt's face. Jason did not yet understand that this moment was only the visible spark of a much larger and far more dangerous fire. What he felt instead was panic, guilt, and a growing fear that Britt had walked straight into something she could not escape. Carly stood alone later that night, staring at nothing, knowing the ground beneath all of them was shifting. She had spent years learning how to endure in silence. That lesson had cost her more than she ever admitted out loud. The old Carly would have exploded, interfered, demanded answers, and forced her will into every corner of Jason's life. But that version of her no longer existed. She had worked too hard to become someone who could step back, someone who could swallow pain and let others choose their own happiness. That restraint had defined her response to Jason and Britt from the very beginning. Carly had not stood in the way of their love. She had watched them grow closer while convincing herself that this was what maturity looked like. Jason deserved a life that did not revolve around danger and sacrifice. He deserved love that was chosen freely and without complication. Britt was that choice. Carly accepted it, even though it hurt in ways she never allowed herself to name. She told herself that loving Jason sometimes meant letting him go, even when her heart protested every step of the way. Over the years, Carly had loved deeply and fiercely. Sunny had been chaos and passion. Drew had been hope and the promise of something calmer. Brennan now represented comfort and stability on the surface. In time, Valentine might even enter that space as well. Yet no matter who stood beside her, Jason occupied a place no one else could reach. What they shared went far beyond friendship. Jason was her constant, her anchor, the person who knew her darkest instincts and accepted her anyway. For Carly, that bond was permanent even if romance was not. She understood that Jason wanted something of his own. He wanted to love Britt without shadows following him everywhere. Carly respected that. She even respected Britt, at least at first. When Britt lashed out in moments of anger, Carly absorbed it quietly. When Britt crossed lines and spoke cruelly about Bobby, Carly's late mother, Carly did the unthinkable and said nothing. The old fire stayed buried. She chose silence over war. That was the proof of how much she had changed. Everything unraveled the night Carly overheard a conversation she was never meant to hear. It happened at Brennan's hotel suite, a place she had grown accustomed to visiting without suspicion. She stopped short when she heard voices inside, Brennan's low and controlled tone mixing with Britt's sharper edge. Carly did not eavesdrop by choice. She froze because something in their exchange felt wrong. The tension was unmistakable. Their words were vague but loaded with implication. They spoke as if Jason were a variable in a dangerous equation rather than a man Britt loved. Carly felt a chill run through her as pieces began to align in her mind. Brennan was not who he pretended to be. She had known that for some time and had chosen to play along, to stay close enough to see his moves before he made them. But Britt's presence in that room changed everything. It suggested coordination. It suggested secrets. And worst of all, it suggested that Jason might be in real danger. For the first time in a long while, Carly allowed herself to act on instinct. She told herself that Jason might be angry. He might accuse her of interfering. But she could not stay silent knowing what she knew. Protecting Jason had always been second nature to her. Love did not disappear just because it changed shape. Carly became convinced that Britt was involved in something far darker than she let on. Whether Britt was acting willingly or under pressure was unclear, but the risk was real. Carly believed Brennan was using Britt or manipulating her, or both. The idea that Jason might be a target pushed Carly past the point of restraint. She decided to confront Britt directly, not to attack her, but to warn her. When Carly approached Britt, she was calm and deliberate. She chose her words carefully. She told Britt that she knew something was wrong and that Jason could be hurt if this continued. She expected resistance. She did not expect what came next. Britt reacted as if Carly had struck a nerve she was desperately trying to protect. Her defensiveness turned sharp almost instantly. She accused Carly of meddling, of jealousy, of refusing to let Jason go. The conversation escalated quickly, exactly as Britt intended. What Carly did not know was that Britt had been forced into an impossible position. Britt loved Jason deeply. That love was real, and it terrified her. Cullum was the man pulling the string. He was the architect of a secret project so dangerous that exposure would destroy him. Jason's instincts and history made him a liability. Cullum demanded that Britt remove Jason from her life entirely. No explanations. No compromises. Britt resisted until she realized the consequences could be fatal for more than just herself. To protect the secret and to protect Jason in the only way she believed possible, Britt needed to sever ties completely. She needed Jason to hate her, or at least to believe she had chosen to leave. Carly became the perfect instrument. Britt leaned into the conflict. She said exactly what she knew would provoke Carly. She brought Bobby into it again, knowing that this time the restraint would break. When Carly struck Britt, the sound echoed far louder than the slap itself. It was the release of every emotion Carly had buried. Regret followed immediately, but Britt was already moving. She stormed away, wounded pride on display, her exit dramatic and final. To the outside world it looked like Carly had crossed an unforgivable line. To Britt it was the excuse she needed. Britt disappeared within hours. She cut off contact. She erased her trail. Jason was left staring at an absence he could not explain. The fear inside him grew with every unanswered call. He searched relentlessly, driven by a single purpose. Finding Britt became everything, and inevitably that path led him back to Carly. Jason confronted her with raw anger and disbelief. He demanded to know what happened. He demanded to know why Britt left after their fight. Carly saw the pain behind his fury, and it broke her. For a moment she considered saying nothing, letting him believe the worst of her. But she had gone too far to stop now. Carly told Jason the truth as she knew it. She told him Brennan was dangerous. She admitted that her relationship with Brennan was a calculated risk. A cover that allowed her to stay close to a man she believed was planning something catastrophic. She confessed that she was working in secret with Valentine to take Brennan down before it was too late. Each revelation landed hard, but Jason barely reacted. His focus remained on Britt. Then Carly told him about the conversation she overheard. She described the tension, the secrecy, the way Britt and Brennan spoke as if Jason were a problem to be managed. Jason did not want to believe it. Anger clouded his judgment. To him it sounded like justification. A way for Carly to excuse the slap and its consequences. He accused her of twisting things to protect herself. Yet even as Jason walked away, doubt crept in. Carly's words echoed in his mind. He replayed every moment with Britt, every hesitation, every unexplained distance. Slowly the idea that Britt had been protecting him rather than abandoning him took root. Still, Jason could not forgive Carly. Not yet. In his eyes her actions had pushed Britt away at the worst possible moment. He left determined to find Britt on his own. Carly was left behind with the crushing weight of uncertainty. Knowing that the truth about Cullum was still hidden, and that the real danger was only beginning to surface. Jason moved through the city like a man possessed, following instincts sharpened by years of danger and loss. Every street corner and every shadow felt heavy with meaning. Britt had not vanished by accident. That much was clear now. Carly's words echoed in his head, no matter how hard he tried to silence them. He replayed every recent moment with Britt, every pause before she answered a question, every look that lingered too long as if she were memorizing his face. What he had once dismissed as stress now felt like preparation. As Jason dug deeper, small details began to surface. A credit card left untouched, A storage locker rented under a false name. A burner phone activated briefly, and then discarded. None of it fit the narrative of a woman storming off in anger. This was calculated. This was fear-driven. And that realization shifted something inside Jason. His anger toward Carly did not disappear, but it lost its sharp edge. Doubt replaced certainty, and with it came guilt. Carly, on the other hand, was fighting a different battle. She stayed close to Brennan despite every instinct screaming at her to run. Each smile she offered him felt like a betrayal of herself. But she endured it because the stakes were too high. Brennan trusted her, or at least believed he did. He spoke freely around her now, careless in the confidence that he controlled the board. Carly listened carefully, filing away every word, every slip of the tongue. She knew that one wrong move could cost her everything. Valentine worked quietly in the background, feeding Carly information and pulling threads that slowly tightened around Brennan. Together they uncovered the outline of Cullum's operation. It was bigger than either of them had feared. Britt had not been a willing partner, but a leverage point. Cullum had discovered her connection to Jason and used it mercilessly. Threats had been made, not only against Britt, but against people Jason cared about. Britt had been forced to choose between disappearing or watching Jason become collateral damage. Jason finally found proof of Cullum's involvement when he intercepted a message meant for Britt, routed through multiple layers of encryption. The content was brief but chilling. It confirmed that Britt was being monitored and that her obedience was expected. Jason felt a surge of rage colder than anything he had known before. This was no misunderstanding. Britt had sacrificed herself to protect him. The trail led Jason to a remote facility outside the city, a place designed to exist unnoticed. Breaking in was dangerous, but hesitation was not an option. Inside he found Britt exactly where he feared she would be. She was alive but trapped in a situation she could not escape alone. When she saw Jason, relief and fear collided in her eyes. She tried to warn him away even as she reached for him. Jason got her out, not without resistance and not without consequences. Cullum's men closed in quickly, forcing Jason to fight his way through with precision and desperation. Every second mattered. When they finally reached safety, Britt broke down. She confessed everything: the manipulation, the threats, the plan to use her disappearance to draw Jason away from Cullum's real objective. The slap from Carly had been painful, humiliating, and necessary. It gave Britt the excuse she needed to leave without raising suspicion. Hearing the truth shattered the last of Jason's anger toward Carly. In its place came understanding and regret. Carly had seen danger where he had refused to look. She had acted not out of jealousy, but out of fear for him. Jason realized that Britt had never truly left him. She had been fighting in her own way all along. Cullum did not escape consequences. With evidence gathered by Jason and intelligence secured by Carly and Valentine, his operation collapsed under its own weight. Authorities moved in quietly but decisively. Brennan was exposed as a key player, his charm and false affection stripped away. Carly faced him one last time, no longer pretending, no longer afraid. She walked away without looking back, finally free of the role she had forced herself to play. In the aftermath, wounds remained. Jason apologized to Carly, not with grand speeches but with honesty. He acknowledged the pain he had caused and the trust he had questioned. Carly accepted it without bitterness. She had never needed his forgiveness, only his safety. Their bond endured, reshaped but unbroken, resting once again on truth instead of silence. Britt recovered slowly, both physically and emotionally. She struggled with the weight of what she had done and what it had cost. Jason stayed with her, patient and steady, proving that love did not vanish under pressure. It adapted. It survived. Britt eventually admitted that leaving Jason had been the hardest thing she had ever done. Harder even than facing Cullum. Jason told her that finding her had reminded him of what truly mattered. Carly watched them from a distance, feeling both relief and a quiet ache she had learned to live with. Jason would always hold a place in her heart, but she no longer clung to what could never be. She had chosen growth over possession, and that choice had saved lives. In the end, the city returned to its uneasy rhythm. Secrets were buried, scars remained, and relationships moved forward altered but intact. Jason and Britt stepped into an uncertain future together, stronger for what they had endured. Carly stood firm in her own life, no longer defined by who she loved, but by who she had become. And though the storm had passed, its echoes served as a reminder that sometimes the hardest acts of love are the ones that hurt the most.